Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Alopecia Angel podcast. I am your host, Johanna, and I'm so excited to be with you here today. Everything you've been told about your children's alopecia being untreatable, being or having no cure is absolutely wrong. There are gentle, natural approaches that work with your child's immune system instead of against it. There is a natural approach to full healing. You've just never been told. Hi, everyone. I'm Johanna, and I want to start by saying if you're watching this as a parent whose child is losing hair, I see you and I understand the fear and heartbreak you're feeling right now. Having healed my own alopecia naturally more than 9, 10 years ago and guided many families through this journey ever since in over 68 countries, thousands of adults, women, and children, I know there's so much hope with proven possibilities than what you've been told or you've been led to believe. In the next few minutes, we will talk about and we'll dive deeper into some of the main root causes that are actually driving your child's hair loss, how they can heal, and how the family can support them, testing that may be needed, and so much more. So let me just say this right off the bat. Healing alopecia and the diagnosis doesn't determine your destiny, and it doesn't determine their life trajectory or anything else. What I like to say and what I like to look at alopecia is that it's a problem, just like anything else that you would see. It's a problem and it's fixable, and you can fix it. And you don't have to resort to medications. You don't have to resort to gimmicks. You don't have to resort to specialty shampoos that don't work or serums or anything else. You can heal, and this can happen in less time. They can heal without medications on a better route with proper guidance. And here's why. The thing is that medications do not give you the full scope of true healing. It's just a band-aid. And it's something that they would have to be on for the most part long term. And it can hinder other areas of health. When we throw steroids and harsh treatments, cortisone shots, JAK inhibitors, and anything else that your dermatologist or doctor wants to give you, they are essentially, with these medications, teaching their bodies to suppress the natural responses instead of learning how to balance them properly. I've seen so many families come to me after months or even years of conventional treatments that either don't work, backfired, or stopped working at some point, which happens all the time, even when you are on meds. And so this is the thing. You don't want to create more problems because of the side effects of the medications. And also, this aggravates their bodies. It can instigate a second, third, or fourth autoimmune disease. And yes, I have seen 6-year-old children with 4 autoimmune disease. I've seen 40-year-old women with 4 autoimmune diseases. So age is not necessarily a factor. It's the situation at hand. And the thing is that you want to avoid the second, third, or fourth autoimmune disease first and foremost, but you also want to avoid fertility issues in the future. You also want to avoid erectile dysfunction. Yes, there's medications for boys and for girls, but you want to also avoid any and all types of potential side effects. And really, what alopecia is, it's a cry for help internally for their bodies to heal naturally. Something or multiple things are wrong and need fixed. And think about this like a check engine light, car light. The check engine light comes on and you want to address what happens there. So you look underneath the hood, you get a diagnostic or some sort of diagnosis. But washing the car or getting a detail or a shine is not going to help the situation. And many times what we're doing with the medications, with the serums, with the lotions and the potions and the shampoos, etc., is we're just washing the car. We're not looking underneath the hood. And that's what needs to happen. And so this is something that, as a mom myself, as someone who went through alopecia herself, medications were not an option for me because I chose another route. And I'm here to tell you that through over the 10 years that I've seen and that I've been healing, not just myself, but also clients, is that healing naturally is your best route. And as a parent to parent, it's your most effective route because you're not only supporting their bodies, but you're also upgrading their immune system so that they can start to ward off and fight off and be much more resilient towards things. And so think about this when your kid was a toddler, and especially in the Netherlands where my baby was born, they like to have this herd immunity situation, right? So first day of daycare, my son is getting strep throat and chickenpox. Thank you very much. And so first week, and he has two things, but they see this as normal. And so, as most of you adults have had the chickenpox as a young kid, as I did, and that's okay. And so then it's just a one and done. And so you can have alopecia be a one and done, or you can choose to have this reoccur in the form of vicious cycles, in the form of not getting to your root causes, in the form of not addressing what truly needs to be addressed. And so it's much more than scalp, it's much more than hair. You have to look at the internal situation. In addition, many of the medications for alopecia cause fertility issues. This is actually why I personally didn't want to take any medications. They also can harm other aspects of health. And as a mother myself, as I mentioned, medications are not always the answer. And taking a conservative approach while doing your own research is best. I have some free PDFs, resources on my website, and we also offer free trainings, in-depth trainings. These are multiple hour long trainings to give you more insight and information into how we work with our clients, into how this happens, because our approach and our method is proven. And you're looking at multiple factors, not just one or two. And it's beyond just diet, because diet is important, but it's not everything. If diet alone was everything, then we would all be skinny and we wouldn't have an obesity epidemic. If diet was the one and only golden ticket, then we wouldn't be having hair loss as well. Correct. And so this is why alopecia, just like weight loss, just like anything else, it's important and it's foundational, but it's not everything. There are so many other factors that go into this. The beautiful thing about working with children is that their bodies respond faster to natural healing approaches, and their biology is already in growth mode. And so there's a huge advantage over somebody who's 80 years old, right? Because the 80-year-old is actually in a downward decline, and the 8-year-old is not. It's in growth mode. And so the body wants to heal, it wants to grow, it wants to produce, it wants to do all the things that a body does at such a young age because it's developing. And so harnessing this key aspect of it allows children to heal faster with the correct approach, with the correct strategy. And I will say that the strategy and the approach is so key to overcoming alopecia in less time. What took me 4 years, for example, just to heal my own situation, because I had blind spots just like everybody else, because I had triggers just like everybody else. I just didn't know how to pinpoint them. And so when you work with somebody, when I work with somebody, when I work with children, when I work with adults, I'm looking at everything holistically. I'm looking at all the possibilities, all the triggers, all the blind spots, and we're uncovering them within the first 24 to 48 hours. This is what allows you to leap into full hair growth in less than 6 weeks, to see hair growth in less than 8 weeks. If you have alopecia totalis or universalis, to have full hair growth on average by 6 to 8 months. That's huge. For many of you, you've been suffering with alopecia totalis, universalis, areata for years. And I will say, trying to do it yourself is very, very hard. It's an uphill battle. And I call alopecia my own healing journey, my Mount Everest, because it was. It was trying to reach this pinnacle of success without a Sherpa, without the help, without a map, without guidance, without anything. And so this is what we do inside the Hair and Heal program. We shorten that process. We get you all the guidance, all the tools, all the techniques, all the testing that you may need, and we get you to success, driven results for full hair growth. This is where they can heal quicker inside the Hair and Heal program. 90% see hair growth in less than 8 weeks, but here's the key. It does require a strategy. It does require the personal evaluation. It does require patience, as each child is so different, especially parents with multiple kids, each child is so different. And I will say that there's only so much that parents can do and can enforce with children, right? There's certain stages and ages in life where maybe up to 10, 12 years old, we can demand or create, mandatory or obligatory treatments. But at some point, as they get older, you need to get their buy-in. And I think this is important for any of you listening with a child that maybe you're thinking about, or a loved one, or even a grandchild. I've had grandparents come to me as well for their grandchildren with alopecia. And so this is the thing, when they're 15 and maybe even a little earlier on up, you want their buy-in. And so, for example, I'm thinking of a client here who him and his mom had worked with functional medicine doctors, they had worked with nutritionists, they had worked with a lot of different people until they found me. They never got any results with these other practitioners. They came to me. The boy was 16 years old and he actually liked me. And so that was the driving factor of understanding and having him heal. He liked me, he wanted to work with me, and I think that does play a part into how receptive children are and can be and should be, right? For example, my child is still a young toddler, so whatever mom says goes. But at the same time, at some point, your child, even though they're still your baby, at 21, at 19, at 17, they can and will rebel. And so I think this is where having a call all together so they can ask their questions, they can go over any concerns, and they can also see from and hear from somebody who's gone through the process that, I've gone through it and I can tell them exactly what this looks like. And then from there, we can create the plan and the strategy moving forward. But really, I would say for teenagers, 14 on up, depending on the child, you're going to want the buy-in. You can't just force them to do a program or, to have diet and lifestyle changes when maybe they don't want to change. And so this is where I go back and I say that this is truly an option, but it's also a choice. Healing is a choice. It's not that you've gone to the doctor and they're like, take the medications or nothing. This is not a medication or nothing situation. This is, you can have your medications and there's side effects and there's health issues and you may not even see progress. It may not even work. It'll be expensive. Health insurance doesn't cover it. There's all these things that go along with medications, right? And on top of it, you'd have to be on it for life. It could disrupt your erectile dysfunction and it could create that situation for boys. And then for girls as well, it could also harm fertility. It could also harm other areas of life and even instigate a second or third autoimmune disease. So something to think about. But once you lay it out, I think, especially with teenagers, then they understand, okay, these are the pros and these are the cons. So it's up to me to make a choice, right? And so then you help them feel more empowered, because I will tell you this, parents, is that we need to empower youth to make better decisions. If they don't know, if they're not educated, then they're going into a world where they're almost blinded and blindsided. So for example, let's say your child had alopecia at 9 years old. Mom and dad did the program for them, implemented everything for them, and boom, they healed. Well, let's say they go off to college and they do their own thing, they live their life, and mom and dad are not there, and this college life, they're there to experience it, and alopecia comes back. So what happens then? Well, what happens then is that if you're doing the program with me, you have lifetime access. So then parents can give the program to the child, and the child at 19, 20, 21, what have you, can do the program on their own. And this is important because they're going to need to learn what they need to do for the rest of their lives. This is like if your child was a diabetic. Sure, you can do the insulin and you can help them along the way, but at some point they're going to have to take their insulin on their by themselves, and they're going to have to understand what they can and cannot eat, correct? And so in much of the same way, it's also with alopecia. And so at some point, they're going to have to fly with their own wings. And so there's a caveat to healing. Everyone can heal, whether you're a child, whether you're a baby, whether you're a teenager, whether you're post-child age after 18, an adult, regardless of how long it's been. However, understand, and the child also needs to understand that it's a choice. It's 100% a choice. Everything is a choice. Going to the gym is a choice. Getting educated, going to school is a choice. Getting a master's degree is a choice. Playing sports is a choice. And everything has a pros and cons. Everything has a consequence to it. So healing alopecia is an absolute opportunity and choice to do it naturally. It's there. Everyone can do this. Now, when you begin this, depending on the age, this is where working with me and the coaching and the guidance helps, because this way, it's a lot of times where children don't want to listen to the parents. And this is where I can be the bad cop and I can also speak to them and also have them understand that this is necessary for their healing. And just like anything, sure, you lose the weight, but then in order to not gain the weight back, there's certain ramifications and boundaries of your diet and lifestyle that you need to maintain. So in the same way with alopecia, there are certain things that you need to maintain so that you can remain healthy for the rest of your life and have your hair for the rest of your life. I'm one of those people. I have had alopecia areata. I'm 10 years plus in remission, and I've never had hair loss come back, even though I've had stressful times, even though I've moved from 2 different continents to a third in less than 3 years, even though I've lived in multiple countries and the move process itself was extremely stressful. I had my first baby at 40, and still alopecia areata has never come back. And that is the key, is understanding your blind spots, understanding your triggers, understanding what is it that makes you unique to this situation, which is alopecia, and how to mitigate it. And also a better understanding of how to empower yourself so this never comes back. For those of you listening and you've had 1, 2, 3, 4 vicious cycles, this is where you can put the end to all vicious cycles, understand it, empower yourself, and move forward and live your best life. And so this is the thing. You get to be like me and my clients, where you wake up every day and not fear hair loss. And you're in the shower, hair loss is never a thing. And so this is the situation, is that we have that choice. And I think that to a certain extent, as the parent, you can instill and enforce certain treatments so that they can heal. But at some point, they're also going to need to fly with their own wings. And this is the key part, because just like anything, right? A house needs maintenance, a car needs maintenance, but so does our bodies. And so this is very key too. Testing may be needed. And for the most part, insurance won't cover it, because why? We offer gold standard testing. However, it's 100% worth it. We offer gold standard testing and DNA testing. Listen to the podcast episode 215 and 219 to see how this alone is a huge game changer. When we're looking at healing, we're looking at diet, we're looking at lifestyle, we're looking at triggers, we're looking at blind spots. But more than that, when it comes to testing, yes, you can heal without testing. I'm actually one of those people as well. I healed completely without testing. Now, it took me 4 years. So could I have moved the needle a lot quicker had I had testing? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not sure. It's hindsight 2020. You can't go back in time. But I will say, for the vast majority, testing is absolutely needed and is so important. A, for a baseline, but B, also to understand your body so much better. And this is why I go back to that DNA test that we offer. That DNA test was such a game changer for me, because being in my 40s, I can see how I had this information when I was 5 or 10 years old. I could have avoided completely my alopecia. I could have avoided other health issues that I had throughout the years and never have had it to begin with. Why? Because the DNA test gives you your manual that no doctor can tell you, that no dietitian, that nobody can tell you is perfect for you. This is how that DNA test works. It's your master blueprint and manual for you, for your specific DNA. And to me, when you have more knowledge, you are absolutely more empowered to make better decisions and to understand what is best for you. And so I will say that that's huge. By the way, we have a free live training coming up. It's towards the end of July. I do recommend that you sign up and you go to our website, alopecia-𝐮𝐭.com, and join us there. sign up there so that you can get your questions answered live, and then we can go over all the things in order to heal and reverse alopecia. So what does this actually look like in practice when you're trying to help your child heal? There are a couple places that we need to start. And I always tell parents we need to remove all processed foods, because a lot of times this is just a big situation. And a lot of times maybe too, you're saying, well, my kid doesn't eat processed foods. And so then we need to look at the definition of like, what does this look like? And this is where that personalized evaluation comes in. We need to add in high quality, nutrient dense foods. And when it comes to timelines, I want to let you know that children typically start to show improvement within 1 to 6 weeks. And a lot of times too, full healing can take 3, 6, 7, 8 weeks, depending on their body, depending on how you implement, and depending on the progress. But progress is seen sooner rather than later. And this is huge because, again, it's a choice and it's absolutely possible. You can see more success stories, hear more client testimonials on our website, podcast, and also YouTube of families that have healed their own alopecia naturally inside the Hair and Heal program. And you can see this all on the website as well. So understand that diet alone will not create miracles. Diet alone is a wonderful first step, but it's not everything, as I mentioned before. You need much more than just diet. Additionally, healing alopecia has multiple parts to it, and maybe even stages and factors depending on who you are, because I will say it's not a one size fits all. The same root causes are never the same for one person to the next. Never. The same goes for children or adults or anyone else. It's never going to be the same root cause for everybody. And so this is why no medication or no one size fits all situation is going to work for everybody across the way. And this is why medical textbooks say that there's no cure, because there's not one pill that everyone will take and everyone will get the same results. Alopecia is a little different. Most autoimmune diseases are a little different because you have numerous factors and every person is different. Therefore, their triggers will be different. Their blind spots will be different. Their root causes will be different. They're not all going to be the same. I say this too because I've worked with nutritionists, dietitians, gut health coaches, and so much that have the hair loss, that have the alopecia, and yet they come to me and their diet's on point, or all these other areas are on point, but they have these other blind spots. And so this is it. You don't know what you're missing until you get evaluated. You don't know what's more or what's leading to your situation until you actually get the full evaluation and you understand your own situation. It's not about understanding other people's situations. It's understanding your own. And much like education, if you think about it, let's say we're all in elementary school or all in high school. The way we understand information, the way we need tutoring or extra help will all depend on our abilities, on our situation, right? You have some people who have special needs, others who need an aid worker next to them, others who need a tutor, others who need a little more extra oomph and boost to their academic life. So it all looks different than the straight A student. Does this make sense? So think of it in that way. It's not all the same. We're not all learning at the same pace, and at the same time, the nuances to each person will also look different. As I mentioned, testing isn't always needed, but do please look to work with somebody who does offer the testing, because testing is critical. I will say though, too, on the testing side of it, is that if you've been working with a practitioner for 6 months, 12 months, and you've seen 0 results, I'd say move on. That's the other thing too. Move on, because they're probably missing the mark. And I've seen this over and over again. I actually had a Canadian client come to me. He was working with a practitioner for 6 years, and they did a lot of testing, but guess what? Her testing was just superficial. It wasn't comprehensive. It wasn't gold standard. And on top of it, she didn't have the experience or the expertise to understand the bigger picture. And so once I saw that testing, I knew exactly what was happening. Once I saw the intake form, I knew exactly what was happening. And this is where you can put the puzzle pieces together in less time. So those 6 years cost him a lot of time and pain because he had so many so many prolonging issues in regards to his alopecia. This was a gentleman, in his early 50s. And the thing is that in less than a week, he found all his root causes, all his situation, all the answers to his own hair loss. And he fixed it in just a couple weeks. But it's knowing is half the battle to implementing. Does that make sense? And so I think that's the other key point that I want to drive is that it's not just about the testing, it's also about the practitioner. Because if the practitioner can't read the test, doesn't have experience, can't see outside the box, can't see beyond it, or is offering you subpar testing, then you're going to be at a loss as well. And so how do you know? Well, you need to ask questions of who's actually doing this test. Is it gold standard? Is it foundational? You need to ask more questions. Having the testing will be needed at some point. I can almost guarantee it. And I say this because I healed with no testing. However, in order to be proactive, I have tested not just once or twice, but multiple times over the course of these years that I've been in remission. And guess what? None of my tests come back perfect. I've always had to fix something. And so this is the thing, is that you want to be proactive. You want to see and have your checkups, just like you go to the dentist. You go to the dentist, I would hope, 2 times a year, right? Every 6 months for a cleaning and for a checkup. They sometimes do x-rays. They sometimes look at those past cavities. They look at anything else that's been going on in your mouth. Same thing with women's health. You here, at least in the States, you get a checkup at least once a year. You're doing a blood draw. You're doing a pap smear. You're doing all the things. Am I right? And so I know abroad, this isn't the norm. I know, for example, in the Netherlands, when I lived there, they told me it was once every 10 years, which was mind blowing for me. And also not up to my expectations. This is how, disease and possibility of health issues can sprout. If you're not checking on things, things can sprout, just like in your garden. Weeds can happen week to week, month to month. So if we're checking on our garden and taking out the weeds, why wouldn't we do the same for our body? And so this is the thing, is like, even if you do heal without testing, you're going to need it at some point, even as a baseline. Why? Because it's important. You want to be on top of these things, right? Just like I have clients who come to me and they're in cancer remission. Well, you're in cancer remission, but how often are they checking to see if the cancer has come back or not? Very often they are. Every 6 months, every 3 months, depending on the type of cancer and the aggressive nature of it. And so this is the situation, is that checkups are needed and testing will be needed at some point. So don't think that, it's just 1 or 2 things and you're good to go. It's going to require much more in-depth information, but this information also leads to results. And this is why my method, the Hair and Heal program, is proven. We can get you to full results. All you have to do is just follow it. So this is where you move into a proactive state versus a symptom chaser, because we're not waiting any longer for symptoms to happen. For example, having had the experience of going through alopecia, having had that for many years and dealing with it, having lost over 50% of my hair, which I'll tell you now, in my mid-40s, as you can see, I have tons of hair now, and I absolutely love it. And I feel very grateful about it, but at the same time, I know that I've taken the steps in order to have amazing hair. And these same steps anyone can do, whether it's for a child, a teenager, a young adult, or a full adult. Anyone can do this. And so if you're feeling overwhelmed by all of this, I understand. There is a lot of information. There is a lot of misinformation. And this is why inside the Hair and Heal too, we take out all the misinformation. We tell you why this is all not part of the program or why this isn't to your benefit. We give you all the education, all the proven research behind it, all of the science-backed information. And this is where you're going to want that personalized approach for your child's unique situation or for your unique situation. I do offer consultations where we can deep dive into your specific triggers and create a customized healing plan together. You can schedule a call today and get booked on my calendar within 48 hours. So you could also choose to come to a live training or send us an email. We want to help you get to full results in less time. You can always reach us at alopeciaangel.com. So I highly recommend that you start to understand that working with a child and healing alopecia is A, 100% possible. B, depending on the age, you may need their buy-in because this is important, right? You can't you can't force a horse to drink water, right? You can only lead them to water. But this is where I can come in and I can help cultivate the want and desire. Why? Because you can fend off the bullying. You can fend off the possibilities of angst, anxiety, depression. There are ripple effects of having alopecia. Even though you may see your child, boy or girl, very strong, very brave, very, very courageous. I've also read and seen the research where children and women are 4 times more likely of getting a second, third, and fourth autoimmune disease. And maybe alopecia isn't debilitating for your child, but there are other autoimmune diseases that are very debilitating and can lead to death quite quickly. So again, it's all a choice. The other thing too that I want to leave you with is that when you heal for life, and you can understand exactly what it is that your body truly needs for the rest of your life so that you can avoid multiple or even just a second autoimmune disease. You can avoid other health issues. You can avoid anything negative and live your best life with full hair, without the bullying, without the shame, without the embarrassment, without the low self-esteem, without anything else. And so think of alopecia and even poise it to your child as this is a challenge. And once we overcome the challenge, everything is better. How many of us have had adversity? I can probably almost say that everyone in this life has had adversity, whether it was a health condition or financial or education wise or anything else. There are adversities, but we are so much better because of the adversity. When we learn to overcome them and grow and learn from them, we become better. And so I will say is that a lot of times it's also the mindset of this. This is not just a diagnosis that, oh, sorry, this is it for you and for the rest of your life. No, alopecia is not cancer. Alopecia is not going to lead to death, but it can have other ramifications. And so you want to understand with wide eyes what's really happening, what's possible, and also understand that this alternative approach to healing, naturally supporting the body, looking at a holistic aspect, looking at root causes, is the best and most effective way to healing once and for all. One and done. For me, it was a one and done. My one was 4 years, but it's been done since. And you can see from the client testimonials on the podcast and on YouTube that for many of them too, it's a one and done. Why? Because I have client testimonials from 4 years ago when they first started seeing hair growth, and then 4 years later when they continue to see hair growth and they continue to thrive and have their best life. And that's what I want for all of you. I want all of you to shorten your time with hair loss, all of you to shorten your time to understanding what your body needs, what you need in order to be your best self, in order to thrive, to have hair, and go on and do big things. Because when we are held back by a disease, a diagnosis, hair loss, or anything else, it does ripple out into other areas of life. And so this is precarious, and it's a cautionary tale. You know, the last thing I wanted to talk about ever so slightly is suicide. Suicide is rampant in children and teens already, just from a social media aspect. This is me as a parent speaking at this point. As a social media aspect, we already have all that. But then when you add on the layer of an autoimmune disease or a health issue or a health condition, it's magnified. And you want to be careful of that. Yes, there have been children's suicide in the alopecia community. If you do your research, you can find these online articles, in newspapers, magazines, this type of thing, where they're 11, 12 years old. They were very brave on the outside, very confident on the outside, but internally they took their own life over a situation that could have been healed. And I will say too, the beauty of this too is that I've come across a lot of young adults who maybe at the time when they were diagnosed, they couldn't have healed because of the parent situation, because of the research, because of opportunity, where they lived, etc. But now as young adults, 24, 22 on up, they're wanting to heal. They're wanting to get their life in order. And this is the first agenda item that they have. And so this is fantastic because if you are that young person who had alopecia since they were 5, 10, 15 years old, and now at 25, they want to heal, it's never too late. It's never too late to heal. Just like it's never too late to get a degree and get your education. It's never too late to lose weight and go to the gym. It's never too late to learn a new language. It's never too late to learn a new skill. And in many ways, this is an opportunity to relearn what we need, how to support our body better, and get the results we're looking for. So I hope this has helped you. I look forward to speaking to you next time. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. Email us anytime at hello@alopeciaangel.com. Like and subscribe our channel so you can always be in the know with the latest research and information in regards to alopecia, hair loss, and healing. Thank you so much. Take care.